Imagine India, where the wealth that built Britain stayed home. £45 trillion. That is not a typo. 45 trillion pounds extracted from India by the British Empire between 1765 and 1938. The largest transfer of wealth in the history of the world. And almost nobody knows about it. Until now. Welcome to India without colonisation. Before we speak of what was taken, we must understand what existed. India is not a developing nation, but India is one of the oldest and most sophisticated civilizations in human history. When Britain was still covered in forests, India had universities. The University of Nalanda, founded in the 5th century AD, had over 10,000 students and 2,000 teachers. It taught medicine, mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, linguistics and the arts. 9 centuries before Oxford University existed, India gave the world the number 0. Let that sit for a moment. Without 0, there's no mathematics. Without mathematics, there is no science. Without science, there is no modern world. The number that makes everything possible came from India. India gave the world chess, algebra, trigonometry, the decimal system, surgical techniques still used today. The concept of atoms, 2,000 years before Western science. Cotton textiles, so fine they were described as woven air. In 1700, before the British arrived in force, India's share of the world GDP was 27%. 27% of everything the entire world produced came from India. Britain's share at the same time, less than 3%. This was not a primitive land saved by civilization. This was one of the most advanced civilizations on Earth, about to be systematically looted by a nation a fraction of its size. The British East India Company arrived in India in 1600. They came as traders. They stayed as rulers. By 1757, after the Battle of Plassey, the British effectively controlled Bengal, one of the wealthiest regions on the earth. And the extraction began. Economist Ulsar Patnaik spent decades calculating exactly how much Britain took from India. Her figure, verified by Columbia University, 45 trillion pounds between 1765 and 1938. To understand how much that is, the entire GDP of the United Kingdom today is approximately 3 trillion pounds per year. Britain took the equivalent of 15 years of its own entire modern economy from India over 173 years. How did they do it? Through a mechanism of breathtaking cleverness. Britain taxed Indians, then used that tax money to buy Indian goods, cotton, silk, spices, indigo, and exported those goods to the rest of the world, making profit that never returned to India. So India was paying with its own tax money for Britain to steal its own products and take the profit. For 173 years, the textile industry of India, one of the finest in the world, was deliberately destroyed. British manufactured cloth produced in mills of Manchester and Leeds were dumped in India at artificially low prices. Indian weavers, who had produced the finest textiles in human history, were put out of business. Some had their thumbs cut off so they would never weave again. The famines. Between 1765 and 1978, an estimated 35 million Indians died in famines. Not because India lacked food, because India's food was being exported to Britain. The Bengal Famine of 1943, 3 million people starved to death, while Winston Churchill, who is celebrated in Britain as a hero, diverted food away from Bengal to feed British soldiers and build reserves. When told of the famine, Churchill said, and these are as his documented words, that it was the Indians' own fault for breeding like rabbits. 3 million people breeding like rabbits. By the time Britain left India in 1947, India's share of the world GDP had fallen from 27% to 4%. In 180 years, Britain took India from 27% of everything the world produced to 4%. That is not development. That is the greatest economic crime in human history. But imagine India without any of that. Imagine India in 2042 where the £45 trillion never left, where the textile industry was never destroyed, where the famines never happened, where the 35 million people lived and built and created and loved. India today is already, despite everything, the world's 5th largest economy. Without colonisation, India would be the world's largest economy by an enormous margin. The technologies that came from Indian mathematics, developed further by Indian minds uninterrupted. The medical knowledge, Ayurveda combined with modern science leading global healthcare. The philosophical traditions of India, Vedanta, Buddhism, Jainism, shaping global ethics and governance. Indian textiles, still the finest in the world, leading global fashion on Indian terms. Mumbai, in this imagined present, is not just the financial centre, it is the financial centre of the world. Larger than London, more innovative than New York, more culturally rich than anywhere on the earth. The Indian space program, already remarkable despite everything, has landed humans on Mars. Because India never lost 173 years of accumulated knowledge and wealth. 27% of the world GDP stayed in India, built in India, fed India, educated India, as it always should have. And yet, despite everything that was done, the Indian people gave the world some of its greatest minds. Mahatma Gandhi, who showed the world that non-violent resistance could defeat empire. Rabindranath Tagore, Nobel Prize in Literature. C.V. Raman, Nobel Prize in Physics. Srinivasa Ramanujan, who taught himself mathematics in poverty and produced theorism that mathematicians are still trying to fully understand 100 years later. The Indian diaspora worldwide, doctors, scientists, engineers, writers, entrepreneurs, the most educated immigrant community in almost every country they settle in. Not because India produces exceptional people, because India is an exceptional people and always was. Imagine what those minds, multiplied by £45 trillion could have built. Imagine the medicines not yet discovered and the technologies not yet invented, the arts not yet created, because the people who would have created them died in a famine that should never have happened. There is a concept in Sanskrit, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. It is one of the oldest and most beautiful ideas any civilization has ever produced. The idea that every human being, regardless of where they are born, is part of the same family. That's what happens to one. That what happens to one happens to all. India gave that idea to the world. And then the world, or at least a part of it, came to India and acted as if they have never heard of it. An old woman in Kerala makes chai for her grandchildren and plays with them. The same recipe her mother taught her and her mother before that, going back further than anyone can remember. She tells her grandchildren about their history. Not the history in the British textbooks, the real history. The mathematics, the medicine, the philosophy, the textiles, the trade. The 27%. She tells them, you come from greatness. Never forget it. And her grandchildren listen, and they know that what was taken cannot erase what was built. The £45 trillion cannot buy the idea that the world is one family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family even when it forgets. This is not just a dream, and this is not just a fantasy. India had everything she needed. The knowledge, the wealth, the people, the wisdom. All she needed was to be left alone, to become what she already was. The largest civilization on earth, and 27% of everything the world produced. The nation that gave humanity the number that makes all numbers possible. 0. From nothing, everything. India without colonization. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. And one member of that family was robbed of £45 trillion. Now the whole family knows. If this moved you, share it. Send it to everyone who needs to understand what the word empire really means. And tell us in the comments what country we should imagine next. And the most liked comment, we bring to life. Because every nation has a version of itself the world hasn't seen yet. And we are here to show it.